All right. Okay, so Daniel Cormier is crying after losing a mixed martial arts fight. I mean, I've never been a big fan of the UFC. I like Pride. I used to watch Bodog fights, Strikeforce. I never really liked the UFC that much for some reason. Just something about them. But now that they've kind of taken over everything, I have to say the UFC has really been stinking lately. And mixed martial arts has been great. Like women's MMA has really come along, and that's great to see. But to see someone crying after losing a mixed martial arts fight, can you imagine? Like, you never saw Fedor crying, like when he lost. You never seen Mirko. Like Mirko, he fought against Fedor for a title fight and lost, and these big fights. These guys lost these big championship fights. A lot of guys have lost. To sit there and be crying is like the most pathetic thing. To me, this is one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen in mixed martial arts. It's one thing to cry, like emotional, like if you won. We've seen people get emotional before, like when they want to fight. They never were full-blown crying. Even that, in MMA, like in fighting, even that is a little bit wimpy, if you ask me. I don't. You don't see that often, and I think it's because most of these champions, like they just are they're just bad. They're just bad dudes, like, and they're not the types. They're just there. Like you never seen Fedor winning a fight, comeback victory, and start crying. I mean, how many times did Fedor come back and win where he almost lost? A lot of times throughout, his 10 years, he had a lot of comeback victories, and you never seen him like crying out of being emotional and being happy and start to cry. He was just such a bad dude. Just didn't faze him. It just seemed like no emotion. He's just there fighting, and even when he lost, you didn't see him crying. I mean, you never seen this before. I mean, this is just. I've lost all respect for Daniel Cormier. Like, I never really disliked Daniel Cormier, and I think at one point I was kind of rooting for him going into this John Jones fight, but kind of all this leading up, I'm not really one to follow all the drama, but John Jones, I don't know. The guy seems, I used to kind of dislike him, and I don't really dislike him anymore. And having seen the way Daniel Cormier acted, like leading up to this, you could see he's got like an ego problem, like a complex. I guess you go and say ego, because I'm sure John Jones has an ego, but Daniel Cormier has like a complex of some sort, and I think that's where this all comes to. Like, he's Mr. Olympian, and he's never lost a round, so and all this, and it's like. You haven't fought the same people that John Jones has fought, and John Jones is undefeated too. So to be going off on this rant like you're so great, I mean, you don't really have anything over the guy you're fighting. If anything, the guy you're fighting, John Jones, he has more on you really in fight sports, in MMA. And then Daniel Cormier's, wrestling and this and that. It's like, that's a long time ago, and who really cares? And he was like 4th place in the Olympics or something. It's not. He act like he's like Michael Jordan of wrestling or something. So, and not only that, with Daniel Cormier, now he's fighting at 205, but you can see you could barely even recognize his face. Like, you could barely even recognize it as Daniel Cormier. He's lost so much weight and basically sucked down to fight in a class that he really shouldn't be fighting. I mean, he really should be fighting at heavyweight. He's a smaller heavyweight, but that's really where he should be. I mean, he doesn't look right. He looks more fit and trim. But some people's body types, they're just not meant to be at certain weights. And you can kind of see that that's what he's doing. So in a lot of ways, that's kind of like cheating. Like, I'm a heavyweight, but I'm going to quick drop down. And I mean, I know they all do it. They all drop weight, cut weight, and it's part of the sport. But so he went through all this trouble to drop down a class, you know, to lose. So it's like, so I don't know. So I'm actually really glad that Jon Jones won this fight. I mean, I'm sure if Gustafsson fights Jones again, I'll be rooting for Gustafsson. I'm sure. But if I tell you what, if Jon Jones fights Anthony Rumble Johnson, I'm going to be rooting for Jon Jones. So, you know, I no longer really dislike Jon Jones. Daniel Cormier just kind of turned out to be like a big jerk, really. I mean, crying, like, even if you lost, like, if you're a true fighter, you know, you don't even think like that. Like, you know, you watch Conor McGregor loses a fight, he won't skip a beat. He'll still be like, "Oh no, I'm coming back. This is just he won this fight, but I'll be back." There's no doubt in their mind that they're going to come back and win. But you know, like Cormier should be like, "Oh, you know, I'm going to come back and fight him again, or have some, you know what I mean?" He just had this like this quitter, like, to be crying and say, "Oh, I didn't get to be a champion." That's like you're a quitter. And that's everything that mixed martial arts and fighting, and at least what I'm about, like listen to hardcore music and things. You know, we're never going to quit. And I'm never going to quit until the day I die, and just in life. And I'm, you know, I'm not a fighter, but like guys that fight, they share the same attitude and mentality, and I think a lot of us as fans do.